This is the Henry's Child Podcast. Am I crazy? Or am I just raving?
As you know, Friday, I released the video of Human Being. And Human Being was just one of 5 songs that we did off the record Listen Closely back in June that was slated to be a part of the Guitars Under the Stars Festival. Well, as I'm sure you're aware by now, the Guitars Under the Stars Festival never occurred, and so what we were left with were these videos. And the first video that I released was Warm, and the second one was Headlights, and now we're moving up to Human Being. And I thought it really fitting because Human Being goes very much in alignment with what is occurring in the Black Lives Matter movement, where we sort of are taking on sort of systemic racism. And really, this would be a great one to do a deep dive with Andrew about, because he wrote those lyrics 25 years ago. And even in the posting I put on Facebook, I was kind of like, I mean, these ring true today more than ever. So it wasn't me just kind of reaching out and saying, hey, tag somebody in the Black Lives Matter movement to get their attention as some sort of advertising thing, but to really make an acknowledgement of it. Being a white male living in the Pacific Northwest, it's very hard to understand the systemic racism that has occurred in this country for decades. And really, we never experienced much of it in Oregon growing up in Eugene. But I can quickly tell that it is something that really penetrates deeply into that culture. And it's just kind of our way of acknowledging and bringing this up in a way that is not only relatable, because, it was 25 years ago when we wrote this song. There was no such thing as Black Lives Matter, but systemic racism still existed as far as I could tell. So anyway, the video has been released, and I'm going to drip the next 2 out between now and the end of the year. So we actually have videos for Whole, and we have a video for I Will, which is actually I Will Pigs, War Pigs, for those of you that have the record. So just a quick reminder that this Friday, November 6th, is when Bandcamp is actually waiving its fees. And normally I try to keep things away from being a commercial, but if there's been any local music or any music from artists maybe that are not on Spotify, or that are not easily accessible on Apple Music, and you've been wanting to get their stuff, Friday, November 6th would be the day to do it. And Bandcamp in general charges the least amount of fees between artist and fan. And so they're already really doing a great service to folks like us in Henry's Child that are just, we have no help. There's no external help. This is just us creating records as we get the money and as the songs sort of come out, and get them done and release them. And until people stop showing up at shows, we're going to keep creating music. And so that's really kind of where we're at. And that's why participating in these sort of things are really important. And that's why I go out of my way to do podcasts and keep the conversation alive, keep the conversation about Henry's Child and about local music going. And in fact, that's really, really a good segue, because one person that is keeping the conversation about music going, especially in these turbulent times, is Nikki Wallace. She released a new blog post this week that really just took my heart. She has a blog. It's called musicismyhappyplace.blogspot.com. And she did a write-up about the January 10th show in 2015. Now, this show was really unique and very special to us because it was the first and only time that 7 Second Circle has played with Henry's Child. And for those of you who may not be aware, 7 Second Circle is really the other Henry's Child, but the other Henry's Child if they were a prog rock band. So it's essentially all the members of Henry's Child with a different singer. So where Andy Smith is the singer of Henry's Child, Brian Forrester is the singer of 7 Second Circle. And we started playing music with Brian back in 2007 when I moved back up from San Francisco and decided to pursue playing music again. And it's great. I mean, we've known Brian for decades, and he's just a great dude. And it was really a special night because we got to play 6 songs off the 7 Second Circle record Divide. There was a band in the middle, and then Henry's Child got to play. And so she wrote about this in a very personal kind of way. And it really authentically chooses very creatively and wonderfully how the impact of the music was on her life. And I stumble over my words only because it's so profound and so deep and so personal that you really have to read it yourself to get it. And you may not be in the band and you may not necessarily have, a connection with these lyrics, but the example that she gives is really the emergent of different things. So a lot of times music is really handled by Rich, and then, Toby and we're kind of like a sub player of that. So if there's a riff that he comes in with, Toby and I will kind of like lay the foundation down and go from there. And then Andy's almost kind of a separate entity with his lyrics, not in a negative or separate, like he's separate from the organism that is Henry's Child, but it's separate, whereas he kind of will just go off, come up with his lyrics, bring them back and sort of fit them in, right? And so what Nikki really addresses in her blog post, aside from all of her personal stuff, is the emergence of all of that stuff kind of coming together. So where I just deconstructed like different parts of a song, those are what sort of naturally happen. And that is really what is so special about Henry's Child and 7 Second Circle, is the way that those deconstructed pieces, come together. So you should give it a read. It's at musicismyhappyplace.blogspot.com. If you don't yet have our record, listen closely. Go to henryschild.bandcamp.com on Friday, November 6th and purchase not only the Listen Closely record, but the I Have Become record as well. And on Bandcamp, the I Have Become record has 3 different types of formats that you can choose from. There's a full cassette version, like an audio cassette. There is a CD, and there's vinyl records. So November 6th is the day that Bandcamp is waiving all of its fees. So go ahead and get our record and get the new Dramatica record that's coming out, and maybe even pick up some Jollymon. I know that Jollymon is available through a record called Voidwalker is available on Bandcamp as well. So thanks again for listening, and thanks again for tuning in. Also, if you're not part of our YouTube subscribers, you should really consider subscribing on YouTube, because the moment that I release those videos, you actually get notified of it. So I had a couple folks that were kind of like, why were you just doing this on Facebook? And the reality is I wasn't just doing it on Facebook. I was doing it on as many platforms as I possibly can. And, hey, if you have any insight into that, write me and directly and let me know. I would really, really appreciate that. The best way to get a hold of me for not only this podcast, but for booking the band is henryschild@henryschild.com. So once again, thanks for listening. I really, really appreciate it, and I appreciate you. Go check out Nikki's blog at musicismyhappyplace.blogspot.com and drop me a line at henryschild@henryschild.com and let me know what you'd like to hear on this podcast. Go to YouTube and check out the Human Being video, leave a like and a comment, and then let me know which song you want to hear next. I have an idea of which one I'm going to release, and here's a hint. It's going to be around Ozzy's birthday. Thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.